This is the order of how we drafted and everything. So then we got to move on and talk about what we did with these people. So, do either of you want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Up to you guys.
I'll go first. I like to get mine out of the way.
Wells Fargo has donated $50 million in support of indigenous peoples, including funding solar furnaces that convert sunlight into household heat. Doing gets it done. Wells Fargo, the bank of doing.
Give your kids independence with Tap to Pay. And give yourself peace of mind with location tracking and calling and messaging on the Fitbit Ace LTE. Play is calling.
Alrighty, so go right ahead.
So I was fortunate enough to be the first one to pick, and I got some good ones early on in terms of like some of the men's participants that I wanted. But when you're booking a Money in the Bank, you suddenly start to struggle with how much can I do outside of this ladder match without having a lame ladder match with someone like Tensai.
So you're not spoiling that Tensai wins your Money in the Bank ladder match, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, he's actually in the first match.
He's your champion.
But overall, I am very happy with my card, and as we get into this, you'll understand the very simple narrative that I tried to weave in throughout this show, and quite frankly, Callum predicted it, so it's not much of a surprise, but we'll get into this. This is Money in the Bank, being held in Charlotte, North Carolina. Take all the hint you need.
Oh man, this is going to be such a Justin Gabriel card.
Starts off with a pre-show match. This is just to finish the last two people I did get on the card. Then Kara defeats Tensai. This states a match that happens on the pre-show. Say that I used everybody I drafted. Yes, that is also how I felt.
Do you have the mood lighting to go along with it?
I think so, because Tensai was around in that time as well, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we can stretch that. But the first match on the actual show is the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. I'm calling this a ladder match all-star showcase. We have Shelton Benjamin, CM Punk, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, Rob Van Dam, Chris Jericho, Seth Rollins, and Edge.
It's a good group.
Yeah, you have to imagine you've got all your tropes. You've got Shelton Benjamin running up one ladder to clothesline CM Punk off another ladder. You've got... I'm working with this. I'll spoil this now. I wanted to do Straight Edge Society Punk. Heel CM Punk. And one of the matches I was going to do, until I decided that would have required putting Tensai and Sin Cara in my ladder match, was going to be CM Punk, leader of Straight Edge Society, teaming with Matt Hardy against Jeff and Rob Van Dam in a no DQ tag match. Couldn't get that. What I will have here is Jeff Hardy taking out CM Punk, similar to how he took out Edge at WrestleMania 23, and CM Punk getting carted off. Jeff Hardy climbing back up, almost to get there, but Matt climbs up, meets him there, twist to fade off ladder. That takes out those two. Rob Van Dam does some nice spots. He does the standing moonsault with the ladder onto Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins gets some curb stomps in. He does a buckle bomb to Chris.
Hello, Moto.
Jericho hitting the ladder. Ultimately, Jericho and Rollins are battling it out on top of the ladder. Rollins almost has it. Jericho, and in my vision, this is like 05 Jericho, just kind of, I think that works with the vibe I'm going with here. And this is, authority Seth Rollins. Jericho gets Rollins off. Rollins goes crashing through some ladders, let's say, and Jericho's about to grab the briefcase, but Edge hits him with a chair again and again and again. Jericho falls. Edge grabs the Money in the Bank briefcase. He's your new Mr. Money in the Bank.
Jericho gets Rollins off, you say?
That's
I was going to say that as well. Best spot in the match.
Happy Pride Month, ladies and gentlemen.
I had to. It just caught me. It's like funny phrasing. Yeah, so Edge, Mr. Money in the Bank. That makes a lot of sense. The ultimate opportunist.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we're dealing with like 2007 Edge year. But what do you guys think of that match as just an overall concept?
It's got a lot of top names in it. Like as the way that you describe it, it's very star-studded. Money in the Bank. It almost makes me feel bad for, well, I don't know what the rest of your card looks like, but it feels like you're putting a lot of eggs in this basket.
There were a lot of eggs in that basket. Booking a Money in the Bank show is hard.
Booking a Money in the Bank show without having the full roster is so much harder because, then you are left with, like, Sin Cara and Tensai instead of being, like, if you had all the access to the same people that Callum and I have, then you'd be like, oh, I got plenty of people, you know?
It becomes a golden show, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so backstage, Randy Orton is being interviewed, and he promises to retire Ric Flair tonight. And Edge comes walking back with his briefcase, looks at Randy Orton with his World Championship, smiles, walks away. Our next match is a singles match between Mark Henry, or Mark Henry, as Tony Atlas would say, and Omos, who has MVP in his corner. Because I did draft MVP. This is what it is. I wanted to do Omos Big Show. I didn't get the Big Show. I got Mark Henry. I'm doing Omos Mark Henry. I'm gonna have Omos win just because I feel youth should prevail at some point on this show, because you're gonna see a lot of. I did draft a lot of older names, so you're not gonna see too much of that. Yeah, this basic match, probably very plotting. There's a World's Strongest Slam attempt, but Mark Henry can't get him up. Omos takes him down in some way. I can't imagine he gets him up with a two-handed choke bomb, but Omos gets the win somehow, some way.
I'm going to say, if Omos is having trouble getting something up, he should talk to Chris Jericho.
Lots of innuendo today. The next match is the United States Championship match that I think we can fairly say these two men are cut from the same cloth, but looking at it through today's lens, probably reeks of mediocrity. It's Dolph Ziggler defending the United States Championship against Mr. Kennedy.
I was never given my opportunity, despite all the opportunities that I got, versus I was never given the opportunity versus despite all the opportunities that I squandered.
Right, and it's realistically, when I look at these two guys now, I see two men that had decent runs. Like, Kennedy has wins over The Undertaker. Ziggler does have that great cash-in. He almost made it into a ladder match. And then I said, I think at the end of the day, Ziggler's 2012 run with the U.S. title and Kennedy's run with the U.S. title, I was like, I'll put them in this match, and Ziggler will win. If you need a story, you can have some fun stuff with, like, the Kennedy doing the exaggerated Mr. Kennedy and the hi, I'm Dolph Ziggler. Just a lot of annoyances. I think this would be an average match, and ultimately I think Ziggler would win because at the end of the day, I think we'd all agree Ziggler is much better than Kennedy.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that. I almost wish that you'd put Kennedy with Orton just for shits and giggles.
Well, he has to try to retire Ric Flair, not Kennedy. Backstage, Ric Flair being interviewed live in Flair Country, live in Charlotte. He's stealing, wheeling, dealing. He says, Randy Orton, you think you're gonna retire me tonight, but you're gonna have to kill me to retire me because there's no way I'm leaving that ring without the World Championship. Edge does not confront Flair, but you can see him smirking in the background. And we move on to our next match, which is a tag team championship match as Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater defend the tag team titles against the LWO, Carlito and Andrade with Zelina Vega.
LWO.
It's there, you know.
I'm not opposed to teaming up Andrade and Carlito for that purpose. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because Andrade was also going to be one of the names who made it into the ladder match, and then I said, I don't have any teams that I would like as much as I like this idea in my mind of Carlito and Andrade, and they win over Gabriel and Slater, and they're our new tag team champions.
Yeah, you could have gone with like the Hardy Boys, but then Matt and Jeff are overall kind of bigger deals for Money in the Bank than Carlito and Andrade, I think.
So I will say this right now. If one of you didn't take The Miz, it would have been Miz and Morrison.
Yeah.
But
What do you mean one of us?
I forgot which one of you took The Miz. I guess, Callum would.
You know which one took The Miz, because I would never take The Miz.
Yeah, if Tony didn't take The Miz, it would have been Miz and Morrison against the Hardy Boys.
And if you wouldn't have had Morrison, I would have probably put The Miz with John Morrison, because that's one of my favorite tag teams of all time.
I also thought maybe doing LWO Hurt Business, MVP and Shelton Benjamin, but I feel like if I'm booking a men's Money in the Bank ladder match, Shelton Benjamin is there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard not to put him in there.
Yeah, it would be criminal to not put Shelton in the Money in the Bank ladder match. He's kind of the guy that, despite all the great stuff in the first match as well, he's kind of the guy that really establishes it as a thing.
Right.
Plus, if you were to take him out, then you'd have to throw in, you're going to throw Slater in there? Nah.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to that. Once you get past certain names, you start deciding, what do I do here? Because I almost just didn't have good card title matches just so I could throw names like Ziggler in the match. But it's very hard to choose, and ultimately I went with this, and I feel like that's a good team. It's a lot of fun. So we go backstage where Shayna Baszler is being interviewed. We didn't draft people, but for my vision, Renee Paquette. And Shayna says, no matter what, I am the best in that ring when it comes to breaking people. That ring is my dungeon. And then we go back to the LWO celebration. Everybody's, happy. They're new champions. They're partying. They're having a good time. And that takes us to our next match, which is a women's championship, 30-minute Iron Man. Shayna Baszler defeats Natalya, 3 falls. I can't. We knock Natty a lot, but I think if you put her in this role, if you say, go out there and have a technical match, she can do it. And Baszler is one of the best in the world, regardless of how they use her on TV today. I think this would be a banger match.
I would more so probably go regular submission match than giving them a full 30 minutes, but I can see where your rationale is, and they probably could pull it off, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, I'd hesitate with the 30 minutes thing, just because, as much as a fan I am of Shayna Baszler, it's not like she was having those sort of ethics. She would win in 10 to 12 minutes, and it was always.
Some of her matches with Kyrie lasted a little over 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's Kyrie, it's not Natalya.
That's true.
I know you're trying to say something good about it, but it's it's Natalya.
I see where you're going.
Makes sense for her to be the challenger, though, especially considering, were you really going to go with, Shotzi just challenging, or, yeah.
So I will give some of my other ideas right here. The way that I did this was I tried to envision these competitors as much as they were in that time. So I was actually thinking of, babyface Bayley. And I was like, that might work. But then I thought, I'd really rather Bayley in the ladder match, in this fake ladder match that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Because I also have Tamina and Nia Jax. And I thought Tamina, Nia, and Natty, and Shotzi, there's too much there, and I want a good match. Which is weird, because it's not a thing that's going to happen. You know.
It's funny though how we always approach these things because we do look at that and go like, "Oh man, would the crowd be upset if this is were to happen?" Right? Like we really treat these as if they're like legitimate pay-per-view cards and stuff. For anybody that's wondering if it's not just like we don't take 10 minutes to slap a bunch of names together and randomize it and go like, that's the fucking thing. Like we really try to think about it from a booking perspective.
So the next match is an Intercontinental Championship match. Bobby Roode successfully defends against John Morrison. This is, as I do sometimes with Bobby Roode, because I always feel compelled, I don't know if Caleb said it on air or off air, to put him in a prominent position. And this was going to be Jericho. But I said, I would rather Jericho in the ladder match just for that extra star power. But that's okay, because we head backstage where Ric Flair's in the locker room, he's warming up, and Randy Orton walks in. And Flair's immediately, he's ready to fight. They're about to go at it for the world title. And Orton just says, Rick, relax, I just want to tell you it's been a great career. I don't like what I have to do to you tonight, but hey, it's just evolution. Miles walks out. We head to another backstage where Bobby Roode is now celebrating his successful defense, talking to the new Mr. Money in the Bank, Edge. Jericho comes up, spins Edge around with the what the hell, I would have had you, that briefcase shooting line. Bobby Roode sticks up for Edge, and that sets up a new feud that, if we were going to have a Monday Night Raw after, Bobby Roode and Chris Jericho will now be feuding over the Intercontinental Championship.
There you go. You got heel glorious Bobby Roode, I'm assuming.
Yes, very much.
Babyface 2005, and no one gives a crap, Chris Jericho.
See that I gave credit.
He was good when he turned heel, but then he left.
Yeah, that is kind of what we got. I definitely didn't want Babyface 2013 Jericho. Like that Jericho to me always felt very much like going through the motions, and I didn't like that.
I was picturing more 2007 Jericho from you were
with the short hair.
Yeah, the Me One title match type Jericho.
It's think of that kind of promo, but with like longer hair and more youthful Jericho.
I try to forget everything from Jericho coming back in 2007 until he turned heel in 2008.
But up next, we have our semi-main. It's the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Shotzi, Bayley, Tamina, Nia Jax, and your eventual winner, Naomi.
Oh, there's the semi-main for you.
Yeah, that's where the crowd can calm down a little bit before.
It's a ladder match, and it's Naomi. Be nice.
There's some talent here.
Just hesitantly going there. There's two people in there.
There is some talent. Among the five people, there are some talent in this.
Shotzi's going to do something that will make people say, ooh. Bayley and Naomi will have a good match around Tamina, and Nia Jax will be there.
Yeah, Shotzi will do something that makes us say, ooh, and then Nia Jax and Tamina will make us do something and say, ooh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Listen, as soon as you guys grabbed the horseman that I knew my women's card was fucked, and that's okay. We got Naomi winning Money in the Bank, and I feel like that's a good pop for the crowd. Naomi could eventually one day become women's champion. I think she's someone who I would definitely have hold on to until a very special moment. I don't know if that's hey, we're going to Orlando and it's a big moment for her, or let's just give her a Mania moment. But I would definitely have her cash in later. Build her up. She was the dominant champion like Baszler.
I'm surprised you don't have Bayley winning to challenge Baszler.
See, but Bayley won, and I wanted to do some again for this fake thing that will never happen. I wanted to do something people hadn't seen yet. Which is exactly why my main event is a World Heavyweight Championship match between Randy Orton and Ric Flair, title versus career. There were several different ways I was thinking about this. One of them would have been Ric Flair winning the briefcase. But I thought, like, Flair in the title picture seems right here. And the Flair I'm picturing is obviously not a guy who could barely move right now, or, you know, a young Flair. I'm picturing exactly the 2006 Ric Flair shortly after he fought Randy Orton in that really good steel cage match at Taboo Tuesday. You know, this would be a lot of fun. Some classic old school wrestling. Flair gets busted open.
Naturally.
Obviously, you know.
Probably on the way to the ring.
Randy does a lot of his signature moves, backbreaker. Flair goes for the figure four. Randy Orton is able to kick him off. He goes for the backbreaker, gets that. You know, they go back and forth. Randy hits the RKO, and he gets cocky. He goes for the punt kick. And when he goes to punt kick him, Flair grabs the leg, figure four, Randy taps out. Ric Flair wins number 17 in Charlotte. Everybody, yay. Randy Orton, kind of like that Happy Tuesday moment. He looks at him, goes to shake his hand, they shake hands. RKO, punt kick, hit Edge's music. Out comes Edge. Randy Orton's walking back. He gives Edge a not like a go get him or like don't do this right now, just like a look, like goes and walks away. Edge, of course, comes down, catches Money in the Bank, ring the bell, spear, 1, 2, 3. Edge is just shit all over Ric Flair's parade in Charlotte, and we go off the air with what I would imagine is Jim Ross going, "Why, you son of a bitch?
Not this way."
God damn him. Damn his soul." That's your Money in the Bank, folks.
So Naomi keeps it for a later time. Edge taking advantage immediately. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it's Edge beating up at like a man who's already been busted open. It's Edge being an absolute prick.
And you don't have to do a Ric Flair title reign for real. Yeah.
I knew as soon as you said that Edge was winning that you were going to have him cash in on Ric Flair at the end of the show. Like, that was just like, it was telegraphed. It's actually quite thematic as well, because Ric Flair was the guy that he fought at the show that he cashed in the first Money in the Bank briefcase.
Right, they fought for the Intercontinental title, and Edge uses the briefcase to bloody Flair. I kind of had like that vision, and you know, obviously the way he cashed in on Taker, which was so great, where Taker's just been through this match with Batista, Henry beats him up, and Edge is just like beating him down with a briefcase. I think that's a perfect cash in, and yeah, it is very. We've seen it. It's very ruthless aggression, but I feel like you tell a pretty decent story there. That way, your one main event has a great story of like its evolution. It's Flair going for 17 in Charlotte. But fuck all that, because here's Edge, who's gonna, you know, make everything about himself.
And you get to send people home happy, but also looking forward to the next thing, because it's like, oh, you got the big like Flair title win, but then you're not shoehorning that. You're getting Edge to do that, so you're getting a cash in too. You're getting the best of both worlds.
And Flair now has beaten Randy Orton, so he saves his career. So now he can come back at some point and go for Edge. And I think that'd be a really fun story.
Not a bad card. A couple hiccups that you had to navigate, like having Tensai and Sin Cara and all, but yeah, I think pretty good job.
Yeah, I'd watch a few of those matches.
As would I.
All I would say the top one and the bottom one for me. The bottom one probably would end up being either the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, depending on like how they were able to execute that, or just the Sin Cara and Tensai thing. Top one, yeah, it'd be the men's ladder match.
Yeah, I mean that's for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like I really sandwiched the show nicely because, like, for me, the one that if I had to watch, I'd probably skip would be. Yeah, I'll come back after that little bit of Henry Omos and Ziggler and Kennedy. After that's done, I'll probably come back and sit down and watch the tag title match. You know.
You really, no, you're selling it well when you won't even watch every match on your show.
Well, no, I'm being honest. I'm being an honest person. I gave the fake crowd as much as I could, but I'm going to be honest with you.
What's your high and low for this, Callum?
Yeah, low would be, Tensai and Sin Cara. I mean, the women's match will probably be bad as well, and I'm not super keen on Henry and Omos because I'm not really usually into that big man matches unless they, like, I wonder if they could probably do something a bit more original. I just think those two are so limited that I don't think that would be a particularly good match. The men's Money in the Bank is definitely the best one on it.
Thank you. I feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do by your reaction.
I like that you always had these backstage segments and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like
You're the only person that does that, yeah.
It's like, it tells a story.
Yeah.
What we're doing here.
Making movies, pal.
Yeah. Putting smiles on faces. Then ripping them
Ripping it
off.
away with a
Yeah,
the smiles on faces and immediately
turning them upside down.
Yeah.
People don't deserve good things. I deserve good things.
Also, it's interesting that I don't know if Callum ended up doing the same thing. I didn't do it, but you've got like Omos with MVP, Andrade with Zelina, as opposed to just having, for instance, Zelina in the women's Money in the Bank ladder match as well, or like MVP replacing, Tensai to be like MVP against Sin Cara, you know what I mean? Like, I see where you're going from and all, but it's interesting to, whenever we do these things and we have like this person's just a manager or something.
So I was like, originally the idea would have been Baszler squashes Vega and keeps her belt. Or MVP teams with Matt Hardy against Carlito and Andrade. And ultimately I was like, Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater are here. I don't feel like shoehorning 3 ways when you have 2 Money in the Bank matches that are very shoehorned in their own way. So that's why I ended up going quite along with it.
Aldi Creamy Fontina and Smoky Prosciutto and low prices? Makes you wonder why other stores don't want you to have nice things. Bougie charcuterie, everyday low prices. It's an Aldi thing.
Alright, so then, do you want... Calum, or do you want?
Hello, Moto. Hello, Moto. Hello, Moto.
Way to go.
I can go.
All right.
Can I go?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so I haven't really considered the order too much this one. I just kind of put them in terms of order of like what I thought were the bigger matches, but I can try and attribute some kind of order into it. Okay, let's kick off with the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. I think it'll be the strongest one, and try and bookend it that way. So I tried to be a bit thematic in terms of trying to make sure I had people that fit into what I think would be different categories of people that would appear in Money in the Bank ladder matches. So I have the kind of grizzled babyface veteran in Chris Benoit. Yeah, I know. So you say him straight away, so I don't have to mention him again. He's not winning the ladder match, don't worry. You have the kind of goofy comedy character that is there to just do a few fun spots, but obviously not gone close to winning, and that's Fandango. You have the giant heel who's just destroying everybody, and like everybody's like, oh, how are you gonna stop this guy? And he could just reach up and grab the briefcase if he wanted to in the Big Show, and mainly also got the Big Show because I really like the golden ladder that he had.
Yeah, I like that a little bit.
And then the babyface powerhouse guy whose main job in the match is to take down the giant, and so that's Big E. You got Spot Monkey guy, to just do some high spots, obviously not win, and that's gonna be Ricochet, of course.
You mean to tell me that's not Samoa Joe? Come on.
You have the chicken shit heel who's just mainly there, like hanging around outside the ring, just trying to pick up an opportunity and gets taken down easily over and over again, and that's Alberto Del Rio. And then the two favourites, like the big heel favourite going into it, who is a veteran of this type of matches and is kind of desperately looking for that opportunity to get a title match, and that is Christian.
One more match.
To get one more match, yeah. And the Bunny Berry cases that opportunity to get one more match. And then the top level babyface main event guy who's looking for trying to add another award to his resume, and also obviously earn a championship match, and that's AJ Styles. So that's the 8 men that I've selected for my men's Money in the Bank ladder match.
Good group.
I think they balance each other out pretty well. It would come down to AJ Styles and Christian at the top of the ladder. I probably would just have Christian win, just because I like the one more match gimmick, and that just giving him that opportunity to, like, I've got one more match whenever I want it. This is my one more match right here. Just to constantly say that, like constantly cutting promos about how, like, I don't need to worry. I've got one more match right here at all times. And so yeah, I'd have Christian pick up the victory, and I always typically lean towards heels being the Money in the Bank winners.
They work a lot better with the idea in mind that you're gonna like have them be like, oh, I'm not gonna cash in right now because you're not beaten enough, and I'm gonna try to steal a victory and all. Because it's weird when you give the Money in the Bank to a babyface and then they just go, I want to
Hello, Moto. Hello, Moto.
Fight. It's kind of defeats
Yeah,
the purpose.
I didn't want to go with. Yeah, didn't want to go with that really. So having the heel win, and also like I don't want, even though it can be thematic, and I don't really mind the approach that Rob took with it. I want my Money in the Bank holders to hold it for a while. I kind of think that, especially maybe it's just due to the modern side of always seeing someone cash in almost immediately after winning the briefcase. It's just, I want people to hold it for a bit, see it on TV for a while. Let's move on to a Intercontinental title match. Rusev, champion, defends against Mustafa Ali. Main story in this is that Rusev is a very dominant champion, and he's just been roughshodding his way through challenger up to challenger, and Ali's the next person to step up to that. I think it'll just be a fun match. Ali will bump well for him. He'll get a few hope spots in there. Obviously, it's Rusev, but I'm going to book him like Miro because it's just a better way to book Rusev. And so, and the best thing one of the best things about Miro outside of his promos is just the neck of sand gimmick. And so that's kind of the whole thing that's going with this is Ali's going to constantly trying to hit tornado DDTs and trying to assault the neck of Rusev, but eventually he gets him locked into the Accolade and adds another name to his record. So yeah, just wanted to have like a fun match between two guys I think would work well together.
Yeah, I'm very much picturing like Russian sympathizer heel Miro, just doesn't even speak, just Rusev crush.
Yeah. No Lana to talk for him in this one, so.
Yeah, because Lana's stuck on my card. I mean, you can't go wrong with that kind of a match, though, too. Like, Ali and Rusev, they'd be able to have a good match, and you just toss the Intercontinental Championship in there, and, solid mid-card match.
I think it's also a match we haven't seen before, so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't recall them ever facing each other, because Rusev was kind of on his way out by the time Ali was starting to make his way on the main roster. Let's see. Go with the tag team title match, because there's a bit of a story behind this one. So the champions of the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro. Because I really like the Bar.
They don't just set the bar, they are the Bar.
What a random team that was just like, God, these guys are feuding together, and then I guess they're going to be a tag team, and then they end up being a really good tag team.
And so in my universe, they were managed by Finlay, and they were a heel act, and Finlay was like obviously the veteran guy from Belfast, had a connection to Sheamus through that, and obviously Cesaro he saw as a prodigy, and so he was managing them through all of that, and they were a couple of heels, and then they start, because almost like they did in reality, in that they got so good as a heel act, they started just turning them. They almost naturally turn the babyface with the crowd, and so they start going with it. And Finlay screws them over and aligns himself with the next hot heel act in the company, which is Drew McIntyre. And this is Scottish psychopath Drew McIntyre, like almost from his like the start of his running WWE or his TNA days and stuff along those lines. He's very much more dishevelled, not cutting jokes while holding a big sword.
Let me hear ya scream. Remember that?
I don't want to. And so they team up together now, the Bar fully babyface and out for revenge against Finlay. So they team up together, so it's the Bar against the Celtic Coalition of Drew McIntyre and Finlay. This was kind of like, this was the one that I was like mixing around quite a lot, because essentially I had Sheamus, Drew McIntyre, Cesaro, Finlay, and a couple of other guys. I was thinking, okay, the tag team titles are going to involve some combination of these people. I just don't know which ones. And so I'd settle on this because I think that having Finlay as a new, like, almost like the MVP type, where he can wrestle, but he's more in there as the manager, and he's going to be like the guy that helps catapult Drew McIntyre towards the main event scene sooner or later. But for now, they're starting off with the tag team titles, and I would have them win and become the new champions here. So yeah, I just think it'll be a fun match, and because I know the Bar do well, and even though Cesaro is obviously doing great as Ring of Honor champion, and I did give thoughts to the idea of him fighting like Brock Lesnar or something, I think that he's always shined best as a tag team guy, and Sheamus is great as a singles or tag team guy, and they had such great chemistry together that I wanted to make sure that they were featured in that kind.